Hello everyone, this is Mrs. Pagan, and in today's lesson we are going to continue with the properties of exponents, taking it to the next level, level B. These are a little bit more challenging problems. Now we will be using the 7 properties of exponents that we learned in the level A using properties of exponents video and applying them in these 5 problems. Alright, let's go ahead and get started. Now notice that in the first example we have 2 different bases with exponents with an exponent's raised to it. So it's power of a power. And what we're going to do is distribute the power to each of the exponents. So here's what we end up getting. A to the 6th power, because 2 times 3 is 6, divided by b to the negative 9 power. Now recall that negative exponents are not okay to have, so we're going to go ahead and move the base, b to the negative 9 power, to the numerator. We're going to keep a to the 6 where it is because it's okay. It's on top and it can stay there because it has a positive exponent of a 6. But b to the negative 9 will move up, becoming b to the 9th power. There's no more denominator. Some people will do divided by 1, but it's completely okay to leave it as a to the 6 times b to the 9th power. Alright, well done. Now let's go into the second problem. We have a negative. Now I see that as a negative 1. So technically I am going to be distributing the power of 5 to the negative 1 as well as to the base of y. So here's what this looks like. Negative 1 raised to the 5th power. And we have y raised to the 2 times 5, which is 10th power, times y to the 2nd power, times y to the negative 12th power. Now, negative 1 to the 5th power is the same thing as negative 1 times negative 1 times negative 1 times negative 1 times negative 1, which is negative 1. We're going to go ahead, since the y's are all the same base, and we are doing a product of these, we're going to go ahead and add the exponents. So we have y to the 10 plus 2 plus negative 12 power, which ends up being negative 1 times y to the 0 power. Now remember that anything to the 0 power is just 1, so we end up with negative 1 times 1, which is negative 1. That's our final answer. Alright, let's take a little breath and go on to example number 3. Now notice that example number 3 is similar to example number 1. There's just a lot more bases in there, okay? So I'm going to go ahead and take this 3, and I'm going to give it to each of the base. This first A, the second B, the bottom B, and the bottom A, okay? And we're going to go ahead and multiply each one of them. I'm going to just erase what I just did just because I don't want it to get too sloppy, and rewrite it. Alright, A, 2 times 3 is 6. B, 1 times 3 is 3. A to the negative 1 times 3 is negative 3. And 5 times 3 is b to the 15th power. Now remember that one of the rules is can't have a negative exponent, so we're going to go ahead and move this a to the negative 3 to the top, resulting in a to the 6th, b to the 3rd. Now a to the 3rd is also on top, divided by b to the 15th. And then remember that we have to have one of each base. So right now we have 2 a bases, so we're going to combine those. And since these are being multiplied, we're going to add the exponents. A to the 9, because there's 6 plus 3 is 9. And then since these b's right here are being divided, we're going to subtract the exponents. We get b to the 3 minus 15. Well, as you may already know, that's a negative number, so a to the 9 times b to the negative 12. Well then, so remember, can't have a negative exponent, so we're going to have to move that down. And I'm going to go ahead and erase this part right there. And that will be our final answer. I'm going to box that so that we can kind of see it. There we go. Alright, let's go on to number 4. So we once again have an exponent outside, so we're going to distribute the exponent, 2 to the negative 3 power, x to the negative 3 power, y to the negative 6 power, because once again we're doing 2 times negative 3. All of them have exponents, negative exponents, so we're going to go ahead and move their locations. This now, 2 to the negative 3 will be in the denominator as 2 to the 3. X to the negative 3 will be in the denominator as x to the power of 3. Y to the negative 6 will be y to the 6 in the numerator. We can't really combine the x's and the y's or the 2's. They all have different bases. But what I can do is simplify 2 to the third power. So I'll leave y to the 6th. 2 to the third is 8, and x to the third. So this will be our final answer. I like to simplify my numbers just because I enjoy simplifying. Alright, let's look at this, what we have. First thing I notice is I have an exponent right here on the outside, so I'm going to go ahead and distribute that over. But I'll rewrite these, and I really don't need an parentheses there, so I'm going to remove them. Ooh, I see a negative exponent, so I'm going to deal with that in a minute. Now there's a negative, so that's negative 1 squared, right? Because we're distributing the power of 2 even to the negative 1, which is right there. And then we have x to the 2 times 2 is 4. And then we have, this is a 1, so y to the 1 times 2 is 2. Okay? So let's simplify what we can, move the negatives down and whatnot. So here's what we have. X to the third will stay. Y to the negative 5th will move down. So becoming y to the 5th. Negative 1 times negative 1, which is the same thing as negative 1 squared, is 1. So I'm just going to write 1. We have x to the 4th will stay on the top because it's positive exponent, and y to the 2nd will stay. Alright, so now we have, to simplify, let's combine the bases of the x. Well, since it's multiplication, we're going to add 3 plus 4, which is x to the 7th. And we're going to go ahead and subtract 2 minus 5, which is y to the negative 3. But remember, we can't have a negative exponent, so we're going to have to bring this negative exponent down. So I'm going to do divided by y to the negative 3. I just brought it down, and then I'm going to erase that right away. And so that's our final answer right there. Alright, so those are the 5 difficult examples that we just tried. We use multiple properties of exponents combined into each problem. So go ahead and go to the tables to work on the in-class practice, and please don't forget to check your work. Can't wait to see you in the next video.